It was a cold Friday night. The digital clock read 2:47 a.m. when the phone rang in the duty room, a sharp metallic tone slicing through the silence. The nurse at reception said a body had just arrived. "Simple case," she said. "Cardiac arrest. Female, 32. No family, no identification, just a brief hospital record." Down the corridor, the morgue lights flickered with that faint electric hum that never truly stops. The floor reflected the wet glow of the tiles, and the air felt heavier than usual, as if time itself froze between each breath. When I opened the steel door, the sound echoed through the empty room, and the scent of formalin embraced me like an old, sterile friend. The gurney waited in the center, covered by a white sheet that traced the outline of the body. She was thin, pale, but what caught my attention were her hands, faintly pink, almost warm. The face lacked that unmistakable stiffness of death. The eyelids half open, the nails tinted with something dark red that didn't look quite like dried blood. The report read, "Sudden cardiac arrest during sleep. No mention of resuscitation attempts or emergency transfer. Just the time of death and a rush signature. Strange. Young, healthy people don't simply die in their sleep without cause." As I noted the first details, that old feeling crept in, the one every coroner knows. The sense of being watched, not by someone alive, but by something that never truly left. I took a slow breath, put on gloves, gown, and mask. When I touched the skin, I froze. There was still warmth, faint but undeniable. I checked the internal thermometer, 33.1 degrees Celsius, impossible. After 3 hours, the body temperature should have dropped far below that. I placed my hand over her chest. The heart was silent, but there was a vibration, subtle, rhythmic, like the hum of a machine somewhere far away. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was my nerves, the cold playing tricks. But deep down, I knew this body still had a story to tell, and I was about to open it. I logged the temperature again, 33.1 degrees Celsius. The digital display blinked stubbornly, as if daring me to accept the impossible. I angled the surgical lamp until the cone of light drew a perfect circle over the chest. The room thickened in the silence, broken only by the exhaust fan and the relentless tick of the wall clock each second a neat nail in the coffin of reason. "Y incision," I wrote, "skin prepped with povidone iodine." The number 22 blade rested beside the handle cold as a late confession. I slid into a fresh pair of gloves. The previous ones felt too cold. When the steel touched sternum, I felt resistance that wasn't rigidity, it was elasticity. Tissue yielding, rebounding, tissue that, by definition, should not respond. First cut exact, second clean. On the third, the forbidden thing happened. Blood, red, alive, obeying gravity. Not spurting, simply flowing, running into the stainless channel until it pooled like a dark mirror. The metallic scent rose fresh, incompatible with hours after time of death. My fingertips tingled inside the latex. I paused, breathed, continued, skin retracted with hooks. Subcutaneous planes separated like they were still warm. The record signs stamp swore at least 3 hours had passed. I powered the oscillating saw. The buzz swelled into the tiles like a frequency only the night understands. I split the sternum in 2 movements. When the plate came free, I knew the night had chosen a road with no return. The heart looked intact, proper turgor, preserved color, none of the pooled, stagnant blotching. I tapped the myocardium with the forceps. It reacted with a slow, weary contraction as if it remembered. A spasm, a textbook would say. But spasms don't push liquid blood through the coronaries or warm the tool. What are you? I thought and hated thinking it. I pinged the tech on intercom. Silence. The red light glowed, unanswered. I drew 2 blood samples, both filled as if there was venous pressure slow, yes, but steady. I aimed an IR thermometer at one tube. Readout 31.9 degrees Celsius. The internal temperature was falling, but not like a corpse, like someone hibernating. Lividity was inconsistent. Rigidity, when present, was temperamental yielding to manipulation, then reclaiming tone, as if muscle memory hadn't been completely erased. The hands held that defiant blush, and a cruel detail cut sharper than my blade. A glassy top coat on the nails' fresh polish, no micro cracks. Someone had cared for her shortly before death. Or after. I opened the pericardium. No exudate, no hidden bleed. The heart's weight was normal, valves clean. Out of reflex, I pressed a stethoscope to the field pointless. I knew and heard something that wasn't a heartbeat. It sounded like the lab's peristaltic pumps, a faint rhythmic flow, liquid traveling through narrow tubing. I pulled the bell away. It stopped. Pressed again. It returned with the same implacable cadence as 2:47 a.m. "Do you hear this?" I asked the room. The exhaust hummed back. Protocol, removal and weighing of organs. Liver firm, no obvious autolysis, kidneys wine red. Lungs surprisingly aerated for a found DOA. When I gently pressed the parenchyma, tiny bubbles rose as if the foam had just formed. Pleural rub? No, something else. Time itself refusing to pass in there. At the skull, the saw trembled. Not the motor, my hand. For a split second, I could swear the brow tightened. Blink. Focus. I removed the bone cap. The brain gleamed moist, healthy pink. The thermal probe read 29.4 degrees Celsius. Too warm for an ending. Too cold for a beginning. I wrote, "Findings incompatible with timeline," and beneath it, a line that should never enter a report. Confirm identity, because I was no longer convinced the body had arrived late to death. It felt like death simply hadn't arrived yet. The cranial saw rested, but its whine lingered as if the room had memorized it. 2:58 a.m. when I faced Sandra again. Skin too intact for 3 days. Sutures healing while I watched. Carlos had gone for more vials. I stayed, stethoscope to sternum, nothing. Yet a faint hiss water through hidden pipes crossed the room. The wall clock's second hand trembled. 2 steps forward, 1 back. Monitors off, but a green glint flickered across tile reflection of what? Sandra, if there's anything to say it now. I heard myself use the tone reserved for the living. The sheet rose a centimeter, a shy lung taking forbidden's air. I tried to rationalize, gases, artifacts, suggestion. Then the impossible arranged itself. A ripple along her arm, nail lacquer catching the lights, a mouth corner far too dewy. I leaned to her ear and whispered, "What do you want from me?" The answer came not as sound, but as rhythm. A thud from the metal table, not the chest. I touched steel, warm. My gloved palm hovered over the thoracic suture, pliant tissue, elastic alive. My notes shook, activity incompatible with postmortem. Then the missing layer, scent. Formalin, yes, but behind it, something faint and domestic, pressed linen sweet, a memory without origin. Carlos returned. "What are you doing, Doc?" Watching a patient who won't choose which side of time to stand on. He didn't laugh. His gaze fixed past me. The ceiling camera, dead for months, blinked red. I snapped a phone photo. On screen, the bed empty. I tilted to the table. Sandra intact. Back to the photo, nothing. The lens recorded an absence my eyes refused. "We should call the chief," Carlos said. "Not yet," I broke protocol. If the line snapped, I need to see where. I tested impossible reflexes. Achilles tap no, cold stimulus no. A gentle table vibration, one fugitive blink, quick enough to doubt. The second blink was clean. Her iris drank light, replenishing. I steadied my breath. "Sandra, can you hear me? If yes, show me time. The wall clock froze. 3:03. My pulse spiked without cause. Carlos set the vials down. Doc, enough. One more question. I hovered a finger above the Y incision. Who painted your nails? A tear formed, not rolling, appearing at the outer canthus. I caught it like evidence. Pocket scope, water, sodium traces, a floral note. See, life signs its work. The police, Doc? Not yet. First, return what's hers. I wound a small music box, another one, lacquered black. The melody spilled backwards, and Sandra's skin stippled under light. The sheet rose 2 centimeters, then settled. The clock resumed. 3:04. If you're between worlds, choose, I whispered. But don't leave me without a mark. The sutures stopped closing. Lip sheen faded. The sweet scent thinned into the vent. The table cooled beneath my palm. Carlos exhaled. She's gone? Or decided to wait for daylight? I wrote a line that would cost me sleep. Matter spoke, not with words, but with time. The clock ticked again, but time no longer seemed to include me. The lamps hummed differently, like something inside them was breathing. Sandra's body remained still, and yet the room wasn't empty anymore. The hum that once came from the vent now seeped through the walls, a muffled whisper beneath the tiles. Carlos had left. I stayed. I always stay. Stethoscope to chest. No heartbeat, but rhythm, a sequence of taps, deliberate, mechanical. Tap, tap, tap. 3 beats, pause, then 4. Someone knocking from the other side of something unseen. I angled the forensic mic. The sound grew clearer. Now words, clipped, distorted, but human. I recorded, replayed, filtered. Peaks appeared on the frequency graph. And in the static, a voice, you will be hurt too. The pen fell from my hand. Monitors, though off, flickered the same number, 333. Cold rolled through the room like water. My gloves were damp, but not from sweat. Voice recorder on. 335, unidentified auditory event. Speech-like pattern. Source, indeterminate. But the sound wasn't in the room. It was inside the body. I brought the mic closer to the open chest cavity. The voice became clearer, syncing with heartbeat intervals. I hear what you think, doctor. I dropped the mic. Silence. Picked it up again. Static. Then the impossible. The corpse's lips moved. Eyes closed, face serene. Only the mouth formed words, barely parting. You're trapped here too. The clock spun backward. Blood in the trays shivered as if it remembered being alive. I went for the door. The lock froze. Behind me, the recorder clicked on. Now the voice coming through was mine, repeating lines I hadn't spoken yet. 338, death listens, but never forgets. My heart sensed to the rhythm of that sound. And I understood we never examine the dead. They examine us. The clock read 4:01 a.m. when the morgue door opened on its own. No footsteps, no sound of wheels. Just a faint current of air sweeping through the hall, and the slow groan of metal hinges. I thought the technician had returned. But no one entered. Only a gurney sliding in by itself, halting perfectly at the center of the room, as if guided by invisible hands. The body was covered by a white sheet. A toe tag dangled from the ankle. Patient, Dr. Daniel Nocturne. Time of death, 3:33. For a moment, my brain refused to interpret. Seeing my own name typed on hospital paper felt like falling through the floor. I thought of error, of coincidence, until I saw the handwriting. Mine. The same script I'd used to sign Sandra's report hours earlier. I pulled back the sheet. The face was mine. Not similar, identical. Every scar, every pore, even the small cut above the right brow from my childhood. The skin was cold, but not stiff. Beneath it, blood seemed to tremble, as if still alive, out of habit. Lights flickered. Monitors came to life one by one. Heart rate steady, 72 BPM. In the corner of each screen, The patient's name blinked, Dr. D. Nocturne. I turned to the terminal. It required a password. I typed my own. The file opened immediately. Date of birth, correct. Address, correct. Cause of death, cardiac arrest at 3:33 during forensic procedure. My hand shook. Cold sweat ran beneath the gloves. Checked the pulse, 72 BPM. Checked mine, 72 BPM. Perfectly synchronized. Then the corpse breathed. Barely, but enough. Its chest rose and fell in the same rhythm as mine. Every movement mirrored. I stumbled back. The ceiling lights reflected off the steel table, forming a twin image, one observing, one observed. A metallic click broke the silence. The recorder had switched on. The voice that came out wasn't Sandra's, it was mine. Record 413, beginning autopsy, subject, Dr. Daniel Nocturne. Observation, still responsive to stimuli, no consciousness detected. I tried to stop the tape. The button wouldn't move. The voice continued, describing every motion seconds before I performed it, predicting me. He approaches the body. He touches his own face. Each phrase forced my body to comply. Not description, command. He begins to understand, said the voice, but it's already too late. I looked down again. The body's eyes were open, and they were watching me with the same expression I wore when I finally understood everything. Too late. The morgue door groaned again, but not from wind this time. An electrical click, then the crisp snap of magnetic locks releasing the hall. Emergency LEDs lit in sequence. A white path toward a wing nobody visits at night. The observation room, 4 walls of CCTV screens. Empty corridors, elevators frozen at the lobby, a reception of flipped plastic chairs, the ICU breathing in dim blue. At the center, a steel desk, 2 keyboards, 2 mice, a digital clock reading 4:19. I sat. The air smelled of coal dust and ozone, dragged the morgue feed to the main screen. Perfect image, the room I had just left, with 2 bodies under sheets. I had left one. Zoom, left table, my outline. Right table, also mine, but the sheet on the right trembled in the rhythm of my breath. 4 seconds in, 5 out. I counted, synchronized, switched to the corridor camera. The screen showed me entering the observation room. Same gate, same coat, same scar. The only difference was the wall clock reflected on the glass door. 4:13, 6 minutes earlier. I hadn't arrived at 4:13 yet. Back to the mosaic. Top corner, I see you, empty. Bed 12 bore a dark impression across the mattress, as if an invisible weight had lain there. The camera jittered, and for a single frame, a face filled the lens, mine, eyes open, mouth sewn shut, blink, normal again. My hands were freezing. I scrubbed the morgue timeline backward. At 3:33, the still door opened by itself. A gurney rolled in, pushed by nothing. Wide angle cut to the table. The sheet peeled back as if pulled by unseen hands, revealing me, eyes closed, chest still, and something impossible. The chest only fell, it never rose. The intercom hissed behind me. I disabled that line at the start of the shift. Still, a voice bled through static. Watch camera 08, camera 08, service stairwell. Concrete steps, rattling handrails, bulbs that die without warning. 2 floors below, someone climbed. No shadow, no breath, only footsteps. A pale glow washed the face, my face, too pale, skin like paper under surgical light. I tried to change feeds. The cursor froze. The screens chose for me. Every display showed the same picture. 2 identical rooms, 2 identical morgues, 2 identical tables. Along the bottom, twin clocks, 4:21 and 4:21. The only difference was temperature in the corner, 16 degrees Celsius left, 4 degrees Celsius right. In the cold room, my breath fogged the air, yet I was in the warm one. The images crept in unbidden. Cold me moved first, a scalpel in hand, slicing the sheet. Warm me flinched from the monitor, but my fingers mirrored the grip, clutching at nothing. When the blade touched fabric on the other side, the rip sounded here. I pushed to stand. The chair felt bolted to the floor. My breath shortened, not from lack of air, from an overdose of mirror. On screen, Cold Me lifted his head and stared directly into the lens. His eyes didn't reflect the room, they reflected screens. He saw me. Synchronize. The word didn't come from the intercom. It came from behind me, a mouthless whisper. The wall clock jumped from 4 hours, 21 minutes, and 59 seconds to 4 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. Every screen reset. A silent countdown appeared. 3:33. That's when the pattern clicked. Each room made the other real. ICU 12 held a mark because, in a parallel minute, someone lay there. The morgue doubled because, somewhere else, someone opened it twice. And I was breathing here because, elsewhere, my body lay still enough to lend me its breath. At 3 hours, 33 minutes, and 1 second, the image froze. Cold Me raised the scalpel over his sternum. Warm Me pressed my palm to the same spot. I felt the metal point where no blade existed. The power flickered. Maglocks fired in cascade. Clack, 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 like ribs popping. Camera 08 showed the observation room door. Outside, someone stopped. The handle turned silently. I understood finally the room didn't observe. It teaches you to watch what hasn't happened yet, so it will. The door began to open. When I returned to the morgue, every light was on. I didn't remember leaving them that way. The brightness was surgical, as if the entire hospital wanted to watch what came next. The table was still at the center, but the body was gone. In its place lay a clipboard resting on the empty sheet. Forensic Institute letterhead, blue ink handwriting, perfectly mine. Autopsy report, case 1710M, date October 20th. Time 4:33 a.m., the same time showing on my wristwatch. The text was writing itself. Line by line, words appeared, the pen moving by an unseen hand. I watched, frozen, as each sentence was born before my eyes. The pathologist shows signs of fatigue, tremor, and partial motor disassociation. Subject remains unaware he is describing his own vital state. Signature pending. I felt the weight of the pen in my coat pocket, took it out. It was identical, yet still here, in my grip. I turned to leave. The scratching sound began again. A new line formed at the bottom of the page. Impatient handwriting. Attempts to flee. Air stalled in my lungs. The temperature dropped. Steel tables fogged with breath. The recorder was running again. Press stop. It ignored me. My voice filled the room. 4:34 a.m. subject in denial. Reflex movements suggest resistance to descriptive binding. Containment advised prior to final signature. A metallic creak came from the ceiling, hooks trembling above the surgical lamp. The clipboard slid to the floor, paper face down. I picked it up. On the back, one crimson line. Signature confirmed at 4:36. My pulse quickened. Clock read 4:35. 1 minute. I tried to tear the page. It wouldn't rip. Too thick, waxy, like treated skin. Ink absorbed the light. 30 seconds left. The voice came from nowhere. Maybe the recorder, maybe the walls, maybe the space between what we write and what we are. I ran to the door. Electronic lock. Red. Swiped my badge. Nothing. Heart alarm sounded from where? The morgue? My chest. Hard to tell. Both matched the same rhythm. One beep, two. If I listened closely, the pattern spoke. Sign. The clipboard shook. The pen lifted. Spinning meter. Not floating, summoning. Anesthesia and obedience filled me. I took the pen. The report was nearly done. One final line. Signature of attending pathologist. The ink guided my hand. Stroke by stroke, my name appeared. every curve perfect. But when it ended, I noticed something wrong. The name wasn't Daniel Nocturne, it was Sandra. I looked at the sheet. The body was back, her eyes open, and beneath my forged signature, the pen wrote one last line. Death doesn't need witnesses, only authors. I found the tape by accident, cracked acrylic case, yellowed label in handwriting. ICU 447, not from our archive. No code, no date, only an hour. When I held it, it felt cold and damp, as if it had been pulled from a lung, not a drawer. I took it to the audio room. Old deck, tired head, hot dust smell. Pressed play. White noise. Then hospital layers, ventilators, muffled footsteps, a distant beep. Then my own voice, rougher than I remember, scraping the air. Incident report. 448, ICU corridor. The pathologist is alone. I stopped the tape, looked out the window, empty corridor, pressed play again. He's holding the tape in his right hand. Now he'll look at the security camera on the left. He'll think he isn't being filmed. I looked, red light on, recording. Hadn't noticed it until the line said, so rewound 5 seconds. Same voice, same certainty. The pathologist breathes 3 times faster when he reads his own future. Without noticing, I was counting. 1, 2, 3. He'll open the IQ door and hear metal. No one's there, but sound arrives before people. I opened it. Cold air exhaled. A metallic shiver ran the length of the bend where the light stuttered. The door closed behind me without touch. 449. He thinks about stopping the tape. He won't. I ran back to the lab. Hit stop. The reels kept turning as if electricity were optional. He understands now. This isn't a recording of the past. It's a checklist of what still has to happen. I sat, nails bit into wood. The voice continued, leisurely describing my body with surgical disgust. Shoulder angle, eye corner twitch, the tongue press I do against my palate when I'm terrified. 450, he'll remember Sandra. The name he signed that wasn't hers. He thinks he can undo the knot if he finds the first point. I remembered. The pen, the clipboard, the red line on the back. I swallowed. The tape seemed to smile. He'll call security. He'll request the night footage. He'll learn that in every camera he appears 2 seconds before he enters frame. I grabbed the phone. No answer. Clock on the display. 450. On the tape too. He'll watch himself pass through the door while he's still behind it. That's the seam. That's where things arrive first. Sound, signature, death. My stomach turned. I rewound again and again. The voice never missed. Every gesture, predicted, repeated, nailed into me like a tack. 452. He'll search room 16. Thinks it's an echo from the old A. He knows where it is, though he's never been. I was already walking. Long corridors, serial lighting, neon hum needling my teeth. Room 16 wasn't on the map, but its plaque existed. Dull metal, 2 uneven screws. I grip the handle. He hesitates. He goes in. The sound he hears is his own, but from the short future. The future of a hallway. Inside. Empty beds, circular ghost marks where devices once were, a window filmed opaque. In the center, a recorder like mine, a tape inside. No label, press play. 453, he finds the twin of sound. He hears himself hearing. I heard myself whisper a no I hadn't said yet. Then my voice, younger or older, no idea. If you stop now, it gets worse. The script only gets shorter when you run. I shut the recorder off. Silence. The lab tape didn't stop. He'll run back, slip on the floor, hit his left shoulder on the jam. He'll bleed a little. He never bleeds much. I ran, slipped. Impact cracked like a dry branch. Pain and anger arrived together like 2 drunk paramedics. I checked my shoulder, shallow scrape, thin blood, obedient to text. 455, last chance. He can cut the tape with the morgue scissors. He'll try. The tape will cut in silence and keep speaking without a body. Draw open. Cold scissors. Heavy blade. I cut. Sound died. Deck didn't. The counter rolled to 456 and the voice returned. No tape. No throat. Now he believes. Now the recording doesn't need a vehicle. He is the vehicle. Something settled behind my teeth. Taste of new plastic, magnet, iron dust. My tongue formed words without me. 457. He will write his own transcript. Sign with the steadier hand. I grabbed the incident form, wrote like stumbling. The handwriting was mine. The will wasn't. 458. Room 16's door will slam by itself. In the glass, his reflection won't keep up. It lags by 1 second. That second is everything. I looked. In the pain, I was still standing. My real body already moved. A 1 second delay. The recording of the world. 459. He'll rewind the start of the cut tape and hear the first line he never played. Death report. 5 o'clock. I rewound nothing. Still heard death report. 5 o'clock. Cause adherence. The pathologist stuck to the time of listening and couldn't unpeel. The clock jumped. 5 o'clock. The voice breathed with me from inside. End of recording? No, just flip the side. And then, from somewhere behind my ear bone, the reel turned again. No tape. No machine. No room. Only sun using me as a room that never closes. The morgue has a corner almost no one notices. A windowless corridor ending in a metal door without a plaque. Behind it lives the personal effects room, a place where watches stop at hours that don't exist. Rings return to the wrong hand, and folded notes change handwriting every time you reread them. That's where I went at 3:11 after the intercom hissed 3 times. Like someone whistling through the hospital PA. The steel trolley stood in the middle of the room, bricks off, paper tags hanging like little tongues. On top, a printed inventory. Recovered items, East Wing, night shift. The date was correct. The time wasn't 3:29. I was still at 3:12. The first clear bag held a brown wallet, dry outside and damp inside as if it breathed. ID, Clara Antunes, 26. I knew the name, a hit-and-run victim who never regained consciousness. The wallet carried a faint tangerine perfume. Inside, 4 cold coins and a bus ticket stamped for the morning after her death. The stamp felt warm, as if it had just kissed the machine. The second bag held a wooden rosary, darkened beads, cords snapped. The label read, Unknown origin found at bed 12. Bed 12 had been empty for 2 months. When I set the rosary on my palm, the wood throbbed with humid heat, pulsing in the exact rhythm of a distant ventilator. Each bead seemed to count a number I hadn't learned to add. The third was the worth, a gold wedding band with 2 dates engraved inside, one plausible, one impossible. 1954 and 2029. Under the dates, micro scratches formed messages along the metal's edge. Do not touch. I rolled the ring, and for a second, I swear the skin of my ring finger parted to receive it, as if the gold recognized a place I had never given it. At the trolley's bottom sat a cardboard box tied with twine. Its tag, written in a sharp hand I didn't know, simply said, Lost and found inventory returned to owner. Who was the owner? I opened the box. Polaroids, each with that half-born chemical fog, as if the image was still arriving. I recognized the ICU corridor, the X-ray door, the 3rd-floor fire stairs. In all of them, one recurring detail, the trolley. Always it. Sometimes empty, sometimes loaded, sometimes pushed by someone the photo refused to fix. Just the dark fold of an elbow, the shadow of a jaw, a hand with 3 fingers and a ring. On the backs, short notes. They come back alone. Do not accept what calls your name. If it's warm, return immediately. I closed the box. The steel shelf lined up tags alphabetically, but a fresh letter had bled between the old ones, sharp and new like a vein rising under paper skin. The intercom hissed again. 3 short whistles, 1 long. The wall clock jumped from 3:18 to 3:29. When I looked back, a new bag sat on the trolley, labeled in my handwriting, stethoscope, Dr. Nocturne, lost on 7/17th's night shift. I touched my neck by reflex. My stethoscope was there. Another identical rested in plastic. I lifted it. The metal was warm, slick with condensation, and for an instant the diaphragm carried a sound. I pressed it to the room's silence. I heard breathing, many, deep, rhythmic, as if dozens of chests inhaled behind the refrigerated drawers. When I pulled the bell away, its membrane fogged from the inside like someone had blown from there to here. I returned to the printout. The list advanced on its own, line by line, like leaves turned by indoor wind. The bottom entry was new. Key's door without plaque, returned to the doctor who opened it. I looked at my hand. I held a keychain I hadn't had a second before. 3 keys, 1 cut whose teeth formed clearly my medical license number. I tried to laugh. The sound cracked dry. I began returning what I could. The ring back to the metal tray, the rosary to the unknown origins envelope, the Polaroids to their box. When I touched Clara's wallet again, the bus ticket clicked inside like grease freezing. I opened it. The date stamp had changed. Not the day after her death, today, and the time, 3:41. Someone knocked. 3 soft, polite taps. I turned the handle. The corridor was empty. On the floor, a manila envelope with my name in that same sharp hand. Inside, a single blank tag, its plastic loop already threaded. I understood the instruction without reading it. Anything returning warm belongs to someone who still breathes. I went back to the trolley. A faint vapor curled from the twin stethoscope bag. I tied the blank tag to it and wrote, "Return to whoever calls for it." I set it on the middle shelf, the immediate return rack. The vapor thinned. The intercom whistled again, 3 short, 1 long. The clock leapt to 3:41. I switched off the light and let the door rest unlocked. As I walked away, I heard the discreet roll of casters moving by themselves. I didn't look back. I learned something in that room. The morgue isn't only where things end, it's where some things find their way back. And if you return warm, the wall clock was working again. 3:47, 1 second at a time. Each tick almost human, like a breath held between beats. Everything in the morgue looked normal. The trolley still, the light steady, the disciplined silence of the dead. But something inside me knew. Normality is only repetition wearing a mask. On the table waited the final report. 1 sheet, blank, untitled. The pen exactly where I'd left it, with a dried rust-colored drop on the tip. I stepped closer, each footstep echoing softly across the tiles. At the top of the page, a sentence I didn't remember writing. Cause of death, comprehension. The letters quivered as if breathing. The air felt dense, humid, alive. I flipped through the earlier files, the old autopsies, the voices, the cases I'd recorded. Each one ended the same. The doctor still doesn't understand. But this time, the verb had changed. He understood. And at that realization, something within me shifted. Not fear, but arrival. The recorder clicked on. The tape spun. My voice spoke, calm and clinical. Closing report. The pathologist has realized the truth. He was never examining bodies. He was examining the remains of himself inside each of them. I looked toward the nearest shroud. The folds shaped like a shoulder. For an instant, I saw a chest rise beneath the sheet. The voice continued. There are no victims here. Only versions. The stethoscope felt heavier around my neck. I placed it on my chest. Silence. No heartbeat. Only the quiet rhythm of breathing behind me. I turned. The empty table now held a body. My coat. My face. eyes open, mouth slightly parted, about to say what I already knew. "Dr. Nocturne," said the tape. "The autopsy is complete." The doctor understood and was understood. The air thinned. The light dimmed. The report filled with new lines written by no one. At the bottom, my signature, and below it, another in red ink, cleared for burial. I felt peace. Not relief. Peace, the kind that arrives when sound no longer needs to echo. I placed the file in the folder and walked to the door. Before leaving, I looked one last time at the body on the table. Same Y-shaped scar, clean, sealed. Same eyes fixed on the ceiling. But now I knew they weren't staring at nothing. They were looking up at the place where silence breathes. I closed the door gently. In the corridor, the intercom whistled 3 short tones and 1 long. The signal of completion. There was never another shift, nor was there a need. Some stories don't end with a scream. They end when silence understands why sound began.